Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Hell, even those half-pound prime Wagyu burgers are the best I've ever had as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call. Find out what's for dinner at 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. All right, welcome in everybody listening in on all of our radio and television affiliates, watching on TV, that is. Everybody's streaming on Chicago Food Favorites and all your streaming platforms. Chicago Food Favorites over on Facebook. Make sure you check that out, folks. Lots of fun over there. Lots of great recipes, great restaurants, and great ideas for food and desserts and whatnot. You never know. All right, folks, right into it right away. NFL playoff scenarios. Got to think about these. What happens in the wild NFC at this point? Yeah. What happens if the Eagles, Lions, and Vikings all finish with the same record? I mean, look, it's never been more important for an NFL team to nail down a number one seed in its conference, and the two number ones are the only teams that get first-round byes in the playoffs, while every other playoff team must battle it out to make it to the next week. So there's an interesting situation brewing in the NFC right now. Three teams, Philly, Detroit, and Minnesota, could end up the season with identical records. Now, right now, all three of those teams are 12-2 with 3 games left to play. If they all win the same number of games over the next few weeks, how will the NFL determine who gets the bye? We always wonder about these tiebreakers and whatnot. So, first, maybe an understanding of how the NFL breaks ties in the first place. So look, the NFL has several criteria in place to break ties, and it begins with the team's record in games against each other and continues through various scenarios. If the tie still hasn't been broken after the last category, the final step, believe it or not, is a coin toss. You know, here's a little bit of an interesting fact. Way back in the 1970s, the Chicago Bears lost a coin toss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the winner of the coin toss got Pro Football Hall of Famer Terry Bradshaw. How do you like that? Yeah, look that one up. Anyway, here are the steps to break a tie in the NFL between teams from different divisions. Divisional ties are determined, of course, with the additional step of divisional record between steps 1 and 2. Step number 1 is simply head-to-head, right? So we think about the best won-lost tie percentage in games among the clubs. Pretty simple. Step number 2, best won-lost tie percentage in games played within the conference. Step number 3, best won-loss tied percentage in common games, minimum of 4. That's common opponents. Step number 4, strength of victory in all games. Step number 5, strength of schedule in all games. Now the schedule makers, this is where things get a little bit messed up, because the teams can't control that part of it. The strength of schedule makes no sense in this argument whatsoever. You play who's on your schedule, so that one needs to be negated. Step number 6, best combined ranking among conference teams in points scored and points allowed in all games. Step number 7, best combined ranking among all teams in points scored and points allowed in all games. Step 8, best net points in conference. Step 9, best net points in all games. 10, best net touchdowns in all games. And if all of that doesn't work, there's the coin toss. Yeah, so the NFC North, back to this. The Lions beat the Vikings 31-29 in their first meeting back on October 20, so they have the edge going into the team's second matchup in Week 18 on January 5. The Vikings have that single division loss. That's it. While the Lions have 0, but both also played one other divisional game. The Lions play the Bears in Week 16, and the Vikings play the Packers in Week 17. It could very likely all come down to that final game. Now, if the season ended today, the tiebreaker would be between the Lions and Eagles because they did not play each other this season and aren't allowed, or better yet, they're not in the same division. And we go to conference records. So as of December 17th, for example, the Eagles have 2 conference losses, Week 2 against Atlanta and Week 4 against Tampa, a very good Tampa team and a questionable Atlanta team. While the Lions have 1 conference loss, and that's week number 2 against a very good Tampa squad. And of course, as their 15-week loss against the Buffalo Bills, arguably the best team in the NFL. Now, if the season ended right now, those conference losses would determine the number 1 seed in the NFC, and the Lions would own the tiebreaker over the Eagles and the Vikings, making them number 1. Because it was really the Lions only losing 1 game in the NFC. That's it. So looking ahead, if the Lions went out, they're the number 1 seed. If both the Eagles and Vikings went out, the Vikings would likely own the tiebreaker due to strength of victory. Listen, that is all per the Detroit Press. I mean, look, there's a lot to consider in these standings and these playoff pictures. And I mean, it could get really messy really quickly. And so for the people that don't know how these pictures are really determined, how these scenarios are determined, they'll just spout off talking about it. And so we look at the NFC, for example. We have the leaders currently right now at Detroit 12-2, Philadelphia 12-2, Tampa 8-6, a very good Tampa 8-6 team, and the Rams at 8-6, mind you, with the net point differential of minus 28. Yes, that's how bad the NFC West is right now. Now in the wild card, it is Minnesota, of course, on top 12-4 or 12-2. So they are fighting for that division, and they're fighting for the overall conference winner. Now also, Green Bay is second in the wild card spot at 10-4. So 3 teams in the NFC North have 10 wins or greater. That's nuts. And Washington is the last team in the wild card spot at 9-5 in the NFC. However, right behind them, 1 game out, is Seattle. 2 games out is Atlanta. Now, Atlanta, we're going to get to them in a minute because they have apparently moved on from their quarterback. Arizona is at 7-7, but they're only 1 game out of the division lead behind the Rams. San Francisco is 3 games behind Washington, but 2 games behind the Rams for the division. Believe it or not, Dallas is still in the discussion, 3 games out. The New Orleans Saints is 4 games out, mathematically somewhat alive in this situation. The Chicago Bears, they're done. Carolina done. Actually, New Orleans is done too. And the New York Football Giants, they're done. Now, over in the AFC, things are a little bit questionable here, only for a couple of teams, but otherwise the playoff picture seems pretty clear. Kansas City, number 1 overall right now. Buffalo is 2 games behind them at 11-3. Pittsburgh at 10-4. Now they're fighting for that home field advantage. And the Houston Texans, they cannot win the home field advantage because they already have 9 wins versus Kansas City's 13 wins. So those 5 losses for Houston takes them out of contention for that. But Pittsburgh and Buffalo are still fighting for the overall number 1. Now, the Baltimore Ravens are fighting for the division. They sit 1 game behind the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Denver Broncos, a very good squad with Bo Nix leading the charge, they are sitting in the second wild card spot currently at 9-5, 1 game ahead of the final wild card spot, which is the LA Chargers. Of course, I always want to call them the San Diego Superchargers. Anyway, those 3 teams seem to be firmly in control of their destiny right now because the Colts, the Dolphins, and the Bengals all have at least 2 more losses than the Chargers with only a few games to play. So Chargers win a couple games, they're in. Now, the Bengals still have a chance because the Bengals could win out and take, I believe, the second wild card spot, but it's going to be a very, very tough road for them. But ultimately, the only team that really stands a chance in this, actually, I think the Colts would probably be the worst one out of those 6 and 8 teams, but I think that the Bengals, at a plus 12 differential, they have some kind of a chance, but that's basically it for the playoff picture. And we're going to come back with the Falcons. We're going to talk a little bit about them and find out what's going on with them and their quarterback situation in just a few minutes here on the Sports Circus. Back in a few minutes, folks. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call
714-948-0100, 714-948-0100, again, 714-948-0100.
or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. All right, welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our television and radio and streaming platforms. Big hello to our friends over in Atlanta on 99.1 FM WDJY. Over in Auburn, Alabama, WAUD, home of the Atlanta Braves. Thanks for tuning in also in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the Yankees, 49ers, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Plus a big welcome into all of those listening in on our independents up and down the East and West Coast throughout the Heartland, as well as those on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, Time Warner, and WOW Cable Television affiliates in select markets, plus Hotel TV in over 500,000 rooms from coast to coast. All right, all that said, left off with football, talking about the Atlanta Falcons. What in the world is going on over there? Think about this, folks. These guys, they go out and they spend a bunch of money. How about $100 million last off season? Yeah, $100 million on Kirk Cousins. Yeah, that's the guy. Okay, so look, and this guy has not really played very well. What in the world were they thinking about when they were drafting, well, a questionable quarterback, in my opinion, in the last draft? And it was the Atlanta Falcons made the move that was inevitable after results of a recent 5-game stretch, having them fight for their postseason lives. And of course, after starting 6-3 with the NFC South in control, Atlanta has executed a 1-4 stretch, capped off by a, questionable victory on Monday night against the hapless Raiders. Yeah, but it actually felt more like a loss, really. I mean, look at it this way. Their big-time offseason acquisition of Kirk Cousins started off in a very productive manner for the club, but his play devolved, and he became Atlanta's biggest obstacle towards success in recent games. Just 14 games into a contract that has $100 million guaranteed through the first 2 seasons. The Cousins experiment in Atlanta apparently is over, and the team will be moving forward with, wait for it, quarterback Michael Penix Jr. That's right. So head coach Raheem Morris made the move, well, just yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I believe that he may be losing, in my opinion, he may be losing his job for making this move, saying in a statement, quote, "We have made the decision Michael Penix will be the Atlanta Falcons' starting quarterback moving forward," close quotes. Right. And look at it this way. If you look at what Kirk Cousins has done this season, the only thing that's been bad is he's thrown some interceptions. 3,508 yards, 66.9% complete, 18 TDs, 16 INTs. His quarterback rating is 88.6, so he's thrown to the wrong jersey a few times. Well, maybe a few too many times. Anyway, Atlanta has had almost 2 completely separate seasons on the offensive side of the ball. Over Atlanta's 6-3 start, they look to have a unit capable of at least getting to the playoffs. Now, according to True Media, over the first 9 weeks of the season, the Falcons ranked 7th in expected points added 36.47, 10th in success rate at 44.7%, and 10th in points per drive at 2.33. And they were doing what was expected of them coming into the season, add a veteran quarterback to an offense with young, talented skill players and watch the floor rise. That's what it was. And it still is what it is. Anyway, since then, Cousins turned into a liability and the Falcons plummeted. From week 10, they rank 24th in expected points, minus 27.02, 13 in success rate at 43.2, and 31st in points per drive at 1.37. They went from a top 10 offense to one of the worst offenses in the league. So Kirk Cousins himself was posting strong numbers at the start of the season, ranking 7th among 37 qualifying quarterbacks in expected points added per dropback during those 9 weeks when things looked good. Since then, Cousins' expected points added per dropback has plummeted to 30th among 32 qualifying quarterbacks, and he ranks dead last in interception percentage. I don't know about that. I would probably put Jameis Winston ahead of him. Even with the litany of turnovers and costly plays, the Cousins and Falcons never really dropped below league average in terms of success rate. So what's the problem here? Atlanta's steadiness in terms of offense success rate throughout the losing streak actually creates the framework for beginning to explain what happened to them. And they still move the ball fairly well, but have become too constricted as an offense as the season has gone along. No team runs less play action than Atlanta, and Cousins has scrambled only 3 times this season. I'm going to get back to that in a minute because that's a really important point. Understandable for a 36-year-old coming off an Achilles heel injury. And of course, however, his physical limitations have become a colossal hindrance to this offense, as it's reported. With no play action, the Falcons don't have any changeup to throw at defenses and can't take advantage of having one of the best rushing attacks in the league. They just drop back and fire with no real constraints on defense, which has made them increasingly easier to cover as reported. Now, that's an approach that can work when the quarterback is actually seeing the field well and throwing with accuracy. Now, Cousins is doing anything but that right now, making costly mistakes for routine plays in Atlanta. Now, Cousins leads the league in interceptions over the past 5 games with 9 and has fumbled the ball 5 times in that stretch. It doesn't matter how well they do and they move the ball when these drives are abruptly ended in catastrophe. Anyway, success rates count how well they move the ball. And of course, expected points measure what's happening on those plays. Hence, Atlanta's incredibly low mark in terms of actual being able to put the ball in the end zone. With how constricted the Falcons' offense has become, it's not surprising that they're one of the worst red zone teams despite having players like Bijan Robinson, etc., and Drake London. So, think about how bad that win over the Raiders had to feel in order to make this move. Atlanta didn't even run a play in the red zone against a team that was 2-11 entering the game, and Cousins mustered just 93 net passing yards and had won another brutal interception that shouldn't have been thrown in a million years, according to Yahoo Sports. Now, this was not the scenario the Falcons expected when they signed him. And the plan was to start him for a couple years with Penix sat on the bench and let him grow. Cousins' recent stretch of plays has made his position in the starting lineup untenable. And, of course, like most teams, with a draft of a quarterback in the first round, the rookie will play. And, of course, Penix will take over a team that's still alive for the playoffs despite its recent blunders. He's likely needed to go 3-0 to make that playoff a reality. Now, I said I would get back to this part here when we talked about the dropbacks. So the dropbacks are kind of an important piece of puzzle here. When you think about the quarterback position in the first place, they say, well, this guy only dropped back, or he dropped back most of the time, and he's not a run-pass option kind of guy. Well, I'll tell you this much. when you think about the run-pass option quarterbacks, first of all, they get hurt. That's a bigger problem. And they say, being the writers of this particular article, they say that, well, no team runs less play action than Atlanta and Cousins. He's only scrambled 3 times this season. Never mind the fact that he's had an Achilles injury. The quarterback position, folks, in case you don't know, the quarterback position is to do what? Their job is to stay in the tackle box for protection. They have a halo around them. That's why you take the great quarterbacks of the past, such as guys like Dan Marino. Dan Marino was not a big scrambler. It's just not what he did. He had square wheels. He didn't run very well. But what did he do? He had a very fast release, and he was very accurate. Now, you have to complain about the play calling as it comes from the sidelines. Maybe the offensive coordinator is the one should be questioned about this, because honestly, Kirk Cousins is doing what he was hired to do. And it doesn't just change. They say, well, over the last 5 games, okay, so the offensive coordinator is not calling the plays that need to be called, and apparently they became a little bit more predictable. So maybe it's just that there's not enough play action going on. Meaning, the old school play action, maybe an I formation or a wing formation. There's all kinds of things that can be done. And listen, if Atlanta wanted to do that, if they wanted to bring in Michael Penix, I got news for you. Michael Penix is not the guy that you think he is. Michael Penix, remember, you look back at his history, he was a reject from the Big Ten. He was with Indiana. Then he ended up going to Washington. He was used to getting pushed around by the Big Ten, goes to Washington and gets into a throw situation, and he ends up with a couple of good receivers, so he ends up looking like a rock star, getting drafted in the first round. But when it came down to playing Michigan in the national title game, it was like, here are those guys against his Penix. I'm going to get hammered, and guess what? He got hammered. And it was Washington that lost the national title because Penix wasn't even good enough to compete against the Washington Huskies, let alone the National Football League. Penix is not the guy, folks. That was a wasted draft pick, in my opinion. And it should be Kirk Cousins in the quarterback position in Atlanta, at least through the end of the season. Back here in a few minutes, folks. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello, Americans. It's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time, that's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure to check out thesportscircus.com for upcoming guests, our prior guests, or recorded shows, which can be found on all podcast platforms: Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, etc. Also, make sure you check out the store. Yes, there's a store tab right at the top of the page of thesportscircus.com, and that will take you right to our store, which has wonderful ideas for gifts for hats, t-shirts, hoodies, fleece coats, sweatpants, travel bugs, pillows, mouse pads, etc. All kinds of great stuff there. Check it out. All American-made products at thesportscircus.com. Hit the store page link and go ahead and pick up some wonderful items for your loved ones and for yourself. And welcome back to everybody on all of our network affiliates, all of our independents as well, everybody on TV and everybody streaming. Sticking with football, and I wanted to mention a couple things here about Atlanta with their move, walking away from Kirk Cousins at this point. I think they're going to keep him around just in case they happen to, need a quarterback, imagine that, bring the starter in for the backup, in case they happen to make the playoffs, or in case Penix gets injured too. Now, Penix is going to be running around the backfield. I don't think that's a good situation at all for any quarterback. I don't care who it is. Penix being a rookie, Penix being, in my opinion, a terribly overrated rookie. And as I see it, you're going to see Kirk Cousins again this season in the Atlanta Falcons jersey. You're not going to see him dealt off just yet. If Penix has a reasonable last couple 3 games in Major League Baseball, in the National Football League, I think what's going to end up happening is you may see Kirk Cousins go to the Dallas Cowboys because he's capable of moving a team. Dakota Prescott is not the guy. He's not the guy. I don't even know what Jerry Jones was thinking in the first place because, first of all, Prescott came from Mississippi State University. Now, that was a heavy defensive program. It's very difficult to convert a quarterback that didn't throw in a prolific offense to a team that has a lot of weapons that's used to throwing the ball downfield. And ultimately, they even got him, being Jerry Jones, even got him a good running back in the day with Ezekiel Elliott. Of course, and he's traveled around the league, and he's back with the team as well. But look, there's a lot that's going to happen here with the Cowboys, and I would imagine that Jerry Jones would be very happy to take Kirk Cousins so he has a good, serviceable quarterback. They'll protect him. They'll put the big line in front of him like they did with Troy Aikman, and he'll throw the ball from the pocket as the quarterback position is intended, not to be a run-pass option situation. So ultimately, if you don't see Jones do that, I think there may be the possibility of Jerry Jones making a play to bring Deion Sanders in as his head coach, possibly his kid in as a draft pick in the quarterback position, along with Kirk Cousins, taking him as well from Atlanta. Now, it may sound a little crazy, but it's not that crazy because Kirk Cousins is still a very serviceable quarterback. He's just got to be in the right scenario. And then Mike McCarthy hasn't done jack you-know-what for the Dallas Cowboys, so it might be time for Mike McCarthy to resign rather than getting fired. So I would look for Mike McCarthy to be moving on because Dallas, let's face it, they're out of it at this point. I mean, they say they're not out of it, but they're technically out of it. And McCarthy hasn't done diddly you-know-what since going to the Dallas Cowboys. And Jerry Jones got him because apparently he lost, Jerry Jones, to Mike McCarthy's Green Bay Packers in a playoff scenario. And so, well, if we can't beat him, we're going to go ahead and get him so he can't beat us. That kind of crap. Well, that's not really working out. Now, speaking of, at that time, it was Aaron Rodgers that was quarterback in Green Bay. Well, now, according to USA Today, Aaron Rodgers says to Ryan Clark on some kind of a rant, he said, quote, "You're captured. You're highly vaccinated." Close quotes. How do you like that? I'm going to get into this in just a second here. Think about this. Some people decided to take the shot. Some people didn't decide to take the shot. New York Jets snapped a 4-game losing streak with their last win over Jacksonville. A couple of 3-10 teams, not so good. Anyway, Aaron Rodgers had one of the best games of the season, throwing for 289, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, no turnovers. And of course, as he did last week, Rodgers made an appearance on the Four-Letter Network's The Pat McAfee Show after the win. And the 4-time NFL MVP criticized sports media in his segment for how coverage has changed during his playing career. And he said some of the pundits on the sports shows have opinions that are, quote, unfounded or asinine. And he believes they're celebrities now. Close quote. So the Four-Letter Network NFL analyst and 13-year NFL veteran Ryan Clark responded to Rodgers' criticism on their network's show First Take last week. And Clark called him a, quote, fraud, tone-deaf, unaware, close quote, and argued Rodgers is doing exactly what he accusing others of, being paid to say asinine things. So here's what Rodgers had to say about Clark on Tuesday. Rodgers spent an hour on the Pat McAfee Show discussing topics like drones in New York, the Jets' win over Jacksonville, the latest on the Jets' search for a general manager, and of course the NFL MVP race, the NFC divisional races, his Netflix documentary, and the college football playoff. So after that hour, McAfee stated and started to say, ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Rodgers, before Rodgers cut him off. And Rodgers says, quote, "I'm not done." Oh, beep. So Rodgers then went into what he called just a quick PSA reminder for the show. And he says, quote, "Say whatever the beep you want about me. I don't care. Just before you do it, whether you state your name, your accolades, pronouns, whatever it is, just state your vaccination status so that anything you say afterwards gets put right in right light. Just get it out there." Close quotes. Now, he did not name anyone individually at the Four-Letter Network or elsewhere, but continued to emphasize the vaccination status and went on to say, quote, "Then when you say things about me, people can at least be like, oh, you're captured by the multi-million-dollar propaganda Skyhawk and you're still upset about it. Just so everybody knows where you're coming from. Everybody knows, okay, cool. You're twice vaccinated with Moderna and 3 booster shots, and they say what you want to say. Whatever. Then say what you want to say. Whatever." Close quotes. All right, Aaron. Attaboy. And of course, McAfee and co-host A.J. Hawk both commented that this will help things at the network, likely referring to comments from Clark and others at the Four-Letter Network. And Rodgers went on to say, quote, "I don't care. I'm just saying a PSA. Just please help everybody who's wondering where this is coming from." Where is it coming from? Including myself. Do a little bit of digging and then you know where it's all coming from. You're captured. You're highly vaccinated, and then say whatever the hell you want to say about me because I could give 2 beep about it. Close quotes. Attaboy. I'm not a Packer fan, but I do like what he's saying here. And Rodgers ended with a request that the media members put their vaccination status on air and their biographies instead of their accolades, quote, because they cared so much about it during the COVID years. Close quotes. And then he made his lone reference to Clark saying, quote, "You don't just need a brooch with your initials," close quote. Clark wore a gold lapel with his initials RC on it during his appearance on First Take, criticizing Rogers' assessment of the sports media. And of course he said, quote, "Put your vaccination status on there too," close quote. Now, minutes later, Rogers said his comments on sports media obviously, quote, "struck a nerve," close quote. And actually, he continued on with, "My whole point is saying that most of you, nobody remembers your career. Nobody remembers it. Guess what? In 5 or 10 years, you're not going to remember my career either. In 5 or 10 years, when people forget about my career, I'm not going to need to find some sort of relevance to be on TV. So all I'm just saying, it's just to be humble when you're talking about guys," close quote. So Aaron has got lots of good things to say. And of course, after he finished, McAfee attempted to clarify reports that his company paid Rogers for his appearance. And Rogers said minutes earlier that this year he did not, quote, "take a dollar," close quote, from the show. And in fact, McAfee had said, quote, "The amount of time and effort that you gave to our business on those Tuesdays and the value that it brought, I felt obligated to give you money. I felt in my soul to pay someone whose value is what it is, and that whole thing being held against me, I was so confused. I had no idea that it would be viewed in a negative way," close quote. That's hilarious. I mean, look, this madness went on back and forth. I will tell you this much, folks. Out of all the superstar guests or whatever we've had here on the Sports Circus, never have we paid one penny to any guest whatsoever. They have come here on their own accord, and because they're usually either friends or friends of friends that have come onto the show, whether Super Bowl champions, Hall of Famers, All-Stars, Grammy Award winners, Academy Award winners, billionaire business people, heads of government. That's right, folks. We don't pay anybody a penny to come on this show, and we never will. Back in a few minutes, folks.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Master Cell, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests. Also, check out the partners. There's a partners page over there. Lots of great partners over there that have been with us since the very beginning. And that includes, of course, the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, Cali Vegas, the American Business Trust Company, and many others. Anyway, make sure to check out our partners and give them a little bit of love too, because they need some and they deserve some too. All right. We're going to shift over into baseball now. Welcome back to everybody, by the way. Cody Bellinger is shipped over to the New York Yankees. And I got to tell you, folks, I like the move. I mean, multiple outlets will report on this. They say, well, you know, the Cubs did the right thing. They got rid of the salary and blah, blah, blah. Well, what the Cubs didn't do is they didn't get anybody just yet to fill the spot behind Kyle Tucker. You're going to have to protect Kyle Tucker in the lineup. And think about this. When you look at the Cubs lineup, you say, well, all right, what do they really have that's going to, I don't know, make an impact beyond their superstar acquisition from the Houston Astros, which I think getting Tucker, I like Tucker. I think Kyle Tucker is probably, in my opinion, he's probably a top 5 player in Major League Baseball. And yeah, they say that's a pretty lofty statement. I think Bobby Witt Jr. is one of those guys. I believe, of course, Aaron Judge is there. Ohtani's one of those guys. And I'm not going to put Juan Soto there. I can't. There's a lot of reasons that I can't put him there. I mean, the guy's got a good eye. We'll give him that, and he does get on base. He's got a terrible arm, as I see it. He's got a terrible glove, as I see it. He doesn't really steal bases, as I see it. So he hits for average, hits for power. 2 out of the 5 tools. The other guys, Bobby Witt Jr. is a 5-tool player. I would say that Ohtani being a very versatile player, we're going to throw him in the mix. Aaron Judge is certainly a better player than he is, being Juan Soto. And I would argue even Ellie De La Cruz is a better player than Juan Soto. And so we keep going and going with this, but we look at who in the world is going to hit behind, I don't know, Kyle. Look, Kyle Tucker, he's a big bat. And looking at the lineup right now, and look, I'm looking at lineups.com. And they say, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, leading off would be Ian Happ at short. He's a solid hitter, a solid player, but he's a .243 hitter, end of day. Nico Horner at second base, a decent hitter. The guy's got a little bit of power, but Ian Happ's got 25 home runs from last year. Suzuki as the designated hitter, hitting .283, and he had 21 homers last year, which is respectable for sure. And Michael Busch behind him right now in cleanup is a .248 hitter. Isaac Paredes is gone. Pete Crow Armstrong, second-year player, hit .237 last year. And I don't know, he had 27 stolen bases, which is great. But end of day, who do you have? You got a catcher, a newly acquired catcher, who's basically a gap filler. You got a right fielder in Alcantara with not much experience. And a shortstop, again, with nobody that really has any bedazzle in that lineup. So you lost Paredes, who is a home run hitter, and he drove the most runs in last year at 80 runs on that club. Who in the hell are they going to pick up to hit behind him? And look, they got rid of some guys, but I don't believe that the Cubs are actually going to do this guy, being Kyle Tucker, any good. They're going to have to make a big pickup somewhere. Now, Bellinger could have hit behind Kyle Tucker. Now, Bellinger is going to hit in front of Aaron Judge. So let's go back to this Cody Bellinger situation. So it's from Yahoo. They said, well, it was only a matter of time from the moment Cody Bellinger chose to pick up his $27.5 million player option for the 2025 season. Rather than becoming a free agent, it became increasingly clear, somewhat ironic, that his clock in Chicago was ticking. And Bellinger's choice to exercise the option wasn't especially surprising considering his modest performance last season. He had failed to replicate the star-level production he provided in his first year as a Cub in 2023, and thus it was unclear if he could command similar guaranteed dollars on the open market if he opted out. So look, Cody Bellinger was smart. Now, while Bellinger's decision made sense for the individual, it immediately complicated the Cubs' offensive plans to improve the roster. With an emerging young slugger at first base in Michael Busch and an ascending defensive wizard and center fielder as Pete Crow Armstrong, he is a very good one. The Cubs had seemingly found their foundational pieces at Bellinger two primary positions. So look at it this way. While Bellinger could, in theory, play right field, as he did for much of the second half of 2024, Suzuki, Chicago's best hitter last season, expressed a preference to play more right field than to be limited to designated hitter duties. That dynamic seemed to put Bellinger in a precarious position. So what did they do? Okay, so now you take a guy like Kyle Tucker and you throw him out in the outfield. He's got a cannon for an arm. He was a bona fide five-tool player. You put this guy out there. Now Suzuki is what? He is still a designated hitter once again. Bellinger is a great, great glove out in center field. And if you can't play him there, you put him at first base. And so the first baseman that they've got in Michael Busch, maybe you put in a different position. You put him in as a designated hitter in the meantime. I don't know. But it was a little bit crowded there in the same positions. But Bellinger certainly should not have been the odd man out. So they continue on to say far more relevant than Suzuki wanting to play the outfield, though, was Chicago's desire to get rid of the budget of Bellinger's hefty salary and meaningful improvement on the roster through other means. So that intention became crystal clear last week, of course, when the Cubs acquired star right fielder Kyle Tucker from the Astros, bumping Suzuki back to the DH role and leaving Bellinger without a logical spot in the roster whatsoever. I don't believe that. You put that second-year player, Pete Crow Armstrong, maybe you put him out in left field because the guy's got a glove, the guy can run, and I think that would be the logical thing because Bellinger has one of the best gloves in Major League Baseball. He's just one of those guys. So he can hit. He can hit for power, hit for average. He's got a great glove. He does steal occasional bases, but he's got a cannon for an arm on top of it. I mean, he is still a five-tool player, like it or not. And it's hard to give those kind of guys up. But enter the Yankees. And, of course, it's not just that a Cubs trade of Bellinger seems certain to occur at some point. It's also that the Yankees, of course, seem the most likely destination. Sure enough, Bellinger is now a Yankee, with New York acquiring him from the Cubs in exchange for 30-year-old righty pitcher, a broken Coke machine. And, of course, as the deal, the Cubs also sent $5 million to New York to help cover the remainder of Bellinger's contract, which is kind of funny to imagine. And honestly, I find it humorous. That's right. And the majority of the money owed to Bellinger, though, which could include an additional year if he picks up his $25 million option for 2026 next season, will be the Yankees' responsibility, which was clearly Chicago's goal in the first place. So the Yankees expressed interest in Bellinger early last offseason when he was much hotter commodity, of course, on the free agent market, but the Yankees instead addressed their outfield needs by acquiring Juan Soto and Alex Verdugo in a trade last December that took an obvious suitor, of course, to take Bellinger, ultimately paved the way for him and the Cubs for their $80 million deal last February. So, fast forward a year, and Bellinger once again emerged as a logical target for the Yankees, this time via trade, especially since Soto made his monumental decision to go to the Mets. So, until just a few days ago, the Yankees responded to Soto's departure by adding impact to the mound rather than attempting to replace Soto's contributions in the lineup. And, of course, that was through Max Fried, and that was a very good deal, picking up Max Fried. He's a great ground ball pitcher. He eats innings. And, honestly, that contract, I don't give a damn about it. Yeah, $218 for $8, whatever. The reality is Max Fried is a very, very good addition to the Yankees. And of course, Brian Cashman and company followed with the acquisition of closer Devin Williams from Milwaukee to boost up that bullpen in a big way. So the Yankees actually have done some really good things here. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the Cubs are trying to figure out who's on first and what's on second. So I could keep going on and on about this Bellinger deal, but let's do a quick comparison. Let's take Juan Soto, Cody Bellinger, Alex Bregman, and Teoscar Hernandez. Now, look, the Yankees still have another choice to make or two, and the Yankees still could add Teoscar Hernandez or Alex Bregman. And I think a third baseman in Bregman makes all the sense in the world. Look, the guy's played 1,111 games. He's had 4,800 plate appearances. And the guy can throw some leather, and the guy's got a big arm too. And by the way, out of Hernandez, Bregman, Soto, and Bellinger, it is Alex Bregman that has more RBIs than all of those guys put together. And in home runs, he is just behind Juan Soto by 10. Look at the stolen bases, only behind by 15. Now, that's not so bad. Batting average, he's about 10 points behind Juan Soto. Not so bad. And his on-base percentage is right close. His slugging percentage is right there. His OPS is right there. And his OPS plus is real close as well. His WAR, wins against replacement, Alex Bregman has the highest one over Teoscar Hernandez, 17.9. Cody Bellinger, 24.5. Juan Soto, 36.4. But Alex Bregman is 39.6. He's far more valuable than some of those other players. So if the Yankees pick up Alex Bregman, which seems to be a likely destination, look, Bregman has also won 2 World Series. He's also a 2-time All-Star. He's the only guy, well, better yet, he has a Gold Glove where Juan Soto doesn't have a Gold Glove. He's also won a Silver Slugger. So you see, if the Yankees make a good move, it's going to be to pick up third baseman Alex Bregman from the Astros, who seem to be in fire sale mode right now. Teoscar Hernandez likely will go back to the LA Dodgers where he should be. Juan Soto took the money, went with the Mets. Good for him. He made a bunch of money. And Cody Bellinger has a very good home with the New York Yankees. And I'm thinking that the Yankees are the winners so far in this offseason because they saved making a catastrophic investment in Juan Soto. And Juan's a good player. I'll give him that. But Juan is not $85,000 per at bat good, in my opinion. No, this guy is not even that. And honestly, if you compare him head-to-head with a healthy Mike Trout crushes him. And in fact, I'm surprised the Yankees didn't make a move to try to pick him up as well, bring him closer to home in that New Jersey, Philadelphia market where he's from. He's from actually New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. But at the end of the day, a good third baseman in Alex Bregman makes all the sense in the world for the Yankees. And getting themselves a Cody Bellinger with a tremendous glove helps out on defense. If you remember, of course, the World Series with Aaron Judge dropping the ball in center field on a routine ball that basically turned the World Series into a clincher, the last game into a clincher for the LA Dodgers. That one's on Aaron Judge. They could solve that problem with Cody Bellinger in center field. And ultimately, folks, Judge might be your designated hitter, and Cody Bellinger could play center field for the New York Yankees. That's going to do it for today's show. I'm your Ringmaster Sal. We'll see you in 23 hours on your favorite station right here. Until then, so long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA. the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.